think it's less about the stories that I want to bring as much as, the television, as many people before me have said, successful television is lightning in a bottle. And this is a show that is lucky enough to have some of those elements that make for a successful show. It has a well-constructed core. It has sort of a story engine. And most importantly, it has two incredible actors embodying the lead roles. And so when you have that, then as a writer, you can look at it and say, oh, I can tell any kind of stories because these actors can do comedy, they can do drama, they can do action, they can do scripts that are deeply emotional or scripts that are, about the smart story turns. So in fact, it's really all opportunity. And so, as a writer, one of the saddest situations you can find yourself in, and I'm lucky that I have not had it happen to me that often, is to go to a show where you're like, well, we can't do that kind of story because, they can't do comedy, or we can't do that kind of story because they don't like to run. And so you end up having the box of potential stories be smaller and smaller and smaller. And this is a show where, in fact, the box of potential stories feels very, very big because they're so talented. On a show that's reasonably well-defined, not that difficult. I mean, this was a show with good characters, where the structure of the stories was reasonably clear. And so it was not as difficult as it might be. I mean, it's also the advantage of coming onto a cable show that's only in its 5th season is, not every story's been told. I think it would be very, very difficult to go into a network show in its 9th season because everything you pitch, they'd literally be like, done that twice, done that 3 times, and then you're kind of like, well, I have no ideas, so I don't know what to do. But on this show, where they'd made their 50 episodes, and it's a very well-constructed show with really strong actors in it, it wasn't as difficult as it might have been. I actually, from the moment I heard about it, was just really excited about coming on the show, really excited about the opportunity, and immediately started to have ideas for what kinds of stories I might be interested in telling, and so that's usually the sign that it's going to be okay. There was none here. I mean, I think that, going into any new environment, whether it's grade school or a new show, when you're going in, I think that one's ability to sort of enter that space and be successful is a function almost of how well you can respect what already exists. And so I didn't sort of come in and say, okay, you guys always started with white pages, but now we're starting with cherry pages. I mean, you don't come in and make just arbitrary changes. So I just came in, I met everybody. They're really, really talented. It's an amazing group of people in front of the cameras and behind the cameras. And so, my job was not to come in and just start changing things. My job was to come in and see how I could contribute to something that was already working. And so they were very accepting, very loving. Everybody has been very game for all of the things that I and the other writers have wanted to try, and it's just been a real pleasure. I think that it's a real testament to the series that was created, that in fact they are so interesting. And part of it is that it's not just, they feel like 2 adult women. They don't feel like young girls who were then, embodied by actresses who are forced to play something that doesn't feel real for them. They are 2 adult women doing the things that we do with our friends, which is often nothing, which is, giving each other, kidding each other, which is being present when there's an issue, which is, living through the events that life presents. And there are, almost everything can be fodder for a story on this show. It can be, the story itself, like we have an episode 4 as we filmed it, where it's about the death of a guy who's a prepper, one of those people who builds a bug out for the end of the world. And so the episode has thematically lives in the space of what do you have to do to be prepared? What does it mean to be prepared? And so as you go through the episode, all the characters sort of are reflecting on that idea of being prepared for what life brings you. And, Sasha and Jane and Maura can have those kinds of conversations, and they take you in really interesting ways. You want to know what Jane and Maura would bring into their bug-out shelters if they were, going to go somewhere to prepare for the end of the world. What do they need? And apparently what they need is a foam pillow and jerky. And those kinds of scenes are really what make this show special. They are the scenes that both tug at your heart, but they also are the scenes that make you laugh. And then the scenes that, for a lot of people make them say, oh, I am either glad to have a relationship like that with my friends, or boy, I wish I had a friend that I could have a relationship like that with. They do get annoyed with each other, and we very much try to play that with the looks that we put in the cuts of the episodes. But that only works if you feel the positive element of the relationship. If you give somebody a look of that's the craziest thing I've ever heard, and all the audience reads is, oh, she thinks she's crazy, then it's not funny. But that's crazy through the filter of you're my friend and I think you're a little crazy is okay. And that's what, Angie and Sasha do so beautifully, is that they're very open and very warm actresses with an enormous amount of both empathy and sympathy. And so you feel that. You feel that quality that they have as actresses, and it reflects in the friendship that Jane and Maura have. It's not the network. It's not, no, honestly, I would like to not appear to be pandering by coming up with an answer to this question, but in fact, this is a show with a great production organization, great actors. The studio and the network are fantastic. The writers, some of whom were people I knew, some of whom were people I didn't, are amazing. I wish my commute were shorter, but it's really not that bad, so I can't really even complain about that. So there's nothing, it's a terrific experience. I feel very lucky to be here.